Hey everybody, it's Tim from Tadabase here, and on today's episode of Build It with Tim, we're going to learn how to automate your notifications. There's a number of reasons why you might want to automate notifications that are sent from your Tadabase application. Today, I'm going to just talk about one specific example on automating these notifications. And that example has to do with orders. Okay, so we have orders that come into our application and they have an order date, they have a fulfill by date, and we want to send a notification based on the fulfill by date. So when the fulfill by date is 3 days away, we need to give somebody a heads up and we want to automate that so that no orders or fulfillments get missed. The process itself is actually pretty simple. It's only going to be 4 steps that we need to follow. And we're going to rely on 3 major Tadabase features. Number 1 being table rules, number 2 being Tadabase pipes, and number 3 is scheduled tasks. And to get started, let's look at the data table that we have already through this sample application. You see, we're looking at our purchase orders table, and here is our fulfill by date field. So every order that comes in has a status and has a date in which the order needs to be fulfilled by. So step 1 is going to be adding a new date field in order to store the actual notification date that we're going to use later on in this workflow. We're going to go to the Fields tab, the Date category, and we're going to choose the Date field. We're going to give this a title called Notification Date and save our field. Step 2 is going to be to install the Tadabase Date Utilities pipe. You can find pipes under the pipe section of the builder, and the Tadabase Date Utilities is up here in the upper right-hand corner, but in case you don't see it, we can always search for that pipe and click to start the installation process. Now, the Tadabase Date Utilities pipe is super powerful and contains so many utility functions for handling and managing dates and various functions, such as time ago, converting time, checking if a date is a month, getting the age, so on and so forth. But what we're really looking for here is subtract days. Okay, so we can click the install button and we can enter in some configuration parameters here if we wish, such as the time zone, format, and date time. For me, I'm only going to choose the time zone and I'm going to make sure that it matches the time zone of my application. Once that's installed, we can head back to the data builder for step 3. Step 3 is going to be creating and running a table rule every time a record is created or edited. We're going to click on the Rules tab and then add a new rule. By default, our table rule is going to say run this rule every time a record is created or edited, so we're going to leave it there in case the fulfillment date gets changed after the record is already created. And we're simply going to add that pipe directly inside this rule. So we can select our date utilities pipe, then under select method, we're going to choose subtract days. Now the parameters that we're going to add, we need to feed this pipe 2 different parameters. The first parameter is going to be the actual original date time value. Okay, and that is going to come from our record value of the fulfill by date field. The second parameter that we're going to pass to this pipe is how many days we want to subtract. So this can come from a record value as well, if you have a number field that stores this particular value, or we can kind of hardwire it by choosing a custom value. And in this example, I'll just pick 3. So we're going to subtract 3 days from our fulfill by date field. And then we need to set the value of the notification date field that we created in step 1 to the pipe response of the response. Okay, after we've saved our table rule, we can go back to the Records tab and we can edit any particular record just in order to make sure this works. And you can see that we now have a notification date populated for this record that is 3 days before the fulfill by date. Now that's everything we need as far as our data goes in order to then automate this notification to be sent out. And we're going to create our notification and that automation through the use of scheduled tasks. So step 4 is going to be heading to the Automation tab, Scheduled Tasks, and add a new task. We can give this task a name called send fulfillment notification. The next step in creating a task is to select a data table for the task to process. So, the way scheduled tasks work is we configure the task to run on every single record inside of a data table. So, our data table that we're working with is purchase orders. We're going to choose purchase orders. And what this means is that when this task runs, it's going to go through every single record in that table and perform some sort of action. Now, we can choose to schedule this task or we can choose to run it on demand. In my case, I'm going to choose to schedule it. And that schedule is going to run every day. Let's say something like 9 a.m. Okay, the start of a workday, for instance. And now we will configure our action. And what we want to do here is not update the record, but rather send an email. That is going to be our actual notification that gets sent out. Now, the important part here is that we need to add a condition. So we're going to use our notification date as a condition. Every single day when this task runs, we're going to check, is that notification date today? If it is today, then we will go ahead and send that email. All right, and configuring the email can be whatever you wish. We can send this to a particular administrator for your company or a warehouse manager, somebody who manages logistics, in order to make sure that this particular purchase order is fulfilled by that specific date. We will configure all of our fields and then we can write our message. Now, the nice thing about emailing from a scheduled task is that we can add field values to give more context in our notification. So in this example, we can say order and we can put in the purchase order ID is approaching the fulfill by date. And then our message can contain field values as well. So as a notification to some sort of administrator here, say, hey, this order needs to be fulfilled by this particular date. Right? And that's the basics of setting up these automated notifications. But we can take it a step further if we want to by checking other pieces of data on this record that might be useful when sending out this particular notification. So you can see we have 4 purchase order records. They all have an order status and then they'll all have a notification date. Now, to further refine which notifications actually get sent, we can use an additional condition like the order status to make sure that notifications are only sent out for orders that have not yet been prepared. So if we look at this record in particular, we can see that it has a fulfill by date of July 23rd and the order status is received. We're going to add that order status to our scheduled task. So we can go back to our task and its action. And we can add an additional condition here to say when order status is received. So now, every single day at 9 a.m., we are checking 2 things. Is the notification date today? And is the order status received? If both of those 2 conditions are met, then our automated notification email will be sent.